Joining us now, National Campaign Manager Donald Trump for President. He's becoming a household name, Corey Lewandowki. I hope you had a fabulous Easter, man. Good to have you with us.
Hey, thank you, John. It's great to be back with you. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter as well. Now, let's get to the tabloid here, the National Enquirer, your campaign under fire. People said that somebody in the Trump organization was responsible for leaking this stuff to the National Enquirer that came out and said that Ted Cruz has had a number of affairs. I don't read it. I don't read the tabloid stuff, but it seems like your candidate has responded to that, and that should be the end of it, right?
Well, let me be clear right at the onset. You know, Betsy Woodruff, who is a Daily Beast reporter, was on TV, on CNN specifically, not that long ago, saying that another campaign, and specifically the Rubio campaign, had peddled this story to her and others more than 6 months ago about this alleged affairs, if you will, between Senator Cruz and a number of other people. And I can tell you unequivocally that this campaign or anyone associated with this campaign had anything to do with that story. As a matter of fact, you can speak to any reporter who has covered this campaign, and we will tell you that we are probably the only campaign that has consistently not put out an opposition research file on all of our opponents. And the reason for that is, you know what? We're running a campaign for Donald Trump. We're not running a campaign against anybody. We're running to allow Mr. Trump to put his vision forward of how to make America great again. And that doesn't mean tearing down our opponents, unlike all the other campaigns who put out Oppo files on everybody. We've never done that, and I'll stand by that point. And the fact is we had nothing to do with this, and Betsy Woodruff, who is not a fan of the Trump campaign, has said that this story was peddled to her 6 months ago from the Rubio campaign, so anything to the contrary is just utterly false.
And so our listeners understand what this is, and as you know, I spent my career in journalism. What happens is there'll be an Oppo research in a campaign, and operatives from that campaign will go to journalists and try to get them to buy into the Oppo research and give credence to the stories. Now, obviously, you got to do your research on it, but peddling this stuff happens in our business all the time. And what a good journalist does is they either throw it in the garbage or they do a lot of homework on it. But you've got people in campaigns that try to put this stuff out. Obviously, that happened with the Daily Beast to her from the Rubio campaign. Roger Stone, longtime New Jersey political operative and consultant, was quoted in the story. Somehow the Cruz campaign is tying him back. Corey, my understanding is Roger Stone was dismissed from the Trump for President campaign just after the first debate in Cleveland, if memory serves me correct. Is that true?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And to be clear, you know, Roger Stone is someone who does not work for the campaign, was a consultant to the campaign up until August of last year, and then I've had no communication with Roger Stone since August of last year, and I don't think the campaign hasn't either. And, you know, for the Cruz campaign to equate that Roger Stone as part of this campaign is akin to, you know, us saying that the super PAC that put out the pictures of Melania Trump is part of their campaign. Now, they can deny that, and they can say that they have no communication, but the two are exactly equal. I have no control over what Roger Stone does. He doesn't work for the campaign. He's an independent individual who has no relationship with the campaign in any way, shape, or form. And so for them to intimate otherwise is completely inaccurate, and it's a narrative that they want to continue to perpetuate. But the bottom line is Roger Stone is as much tied to this campaign as the super PAC that leaked that is tied to the Cruz campaign.
I mean, it's just a lie. That's the basic thing. Because I know for a fact that he was dismissed from your campaign after the Cleveland debate. He has no affiliation. And so people go out there and say what they want. It's the same thing with this other ridiculous internet story now going around the internet, that woman that was the communications director for the Make America Great Again super PAC. First of all, you guys never even sanctioned that. You got rid of it, and she's out of a job, and now she's saying that you were running this campaign not to be president. Mr. Trump has spent $50 million. You guys work 100 hours a week, 7 days a week. I don't think you're doing this for a good time. Am I wrong?
Well, look, I didn't take 16 months away from my family and my 4 kids so that I could just go out and say this was a great experience. I'm doing this, and we're doing this, and Mr. Trump is doing this, investing tens of millions of dollars of his own money because this country is fundamentally broken. And it's very simple. You can put someone in charge who's going to fix it, or you can have a career politician or career politicians running for office, make a bunch of promises that they'll never fulfill, and we'll be exactly where we have been for the last 30 years. And anybody who doesn't think so is fundamentally, they're just wrong, is what it comes down to. So our team has been exceptionally dedicated, and we believe in what we're doing. And we're not doing this for fun or, for the notion of traveling around the country and taking time away from our families. We're doing this because the country is broken. We need to fix it, and everyone understands that. And anybody who doesn't understand that doesn't understand what this is about or how serious of trouble our country is actually in. And, let me say something about super PACs. We're the only campaign in this cycle who has said no to all super PACs. And every time a super PAC has been filed with the Federal Elections Commission that says they either want to support or oppose Donald Trump, we have sent a legal notice to them, asking them to disband, telling them that we disavow any work that they are doing, whether it's pro or anti-Trump. We are telling them we don't want them raising money on our behalf. We don't want anything to do with them. And this super PAC that supposedly was established was the exact same thing. That super PAC was disbanded at our request, amongst others, and we said, we don't want super PACs. And look, we called on every single candidate on both the Republicans and the Democrat side who are running or ran for president to do the exact same thing, to disavow these dark money groups that are putting money into campaigns so that they can control what these politicians are doing. Donald Trump is self-funding his campaign. He doesn't want a super PAC. We don't have a super PAC. And if Ted Cruz would have done the same thing, we wouldn't have been in this situation because Ted Cruz would have disavowed any super PAC and said, I want nothing to do with these, and returned all of the money for the super PACs that had been supporting Ted Cruz from the onset. And he didn't do that. And he actively goes out and talks about his ability to raise money for super PACs.
Right, which is the crux of this whole debate right now. Obviously, you didn't have him, you wouldn't have any of this stuff, and we wouldn't be dealing with it right now. Look, I know for a fact there was one that popped up in Virginia early on, and I know for a fact because I know the gentleman that tried to start it up, you guys shut it down immediately and said you didn't want to be involved in it at all. So, I mean, I can vouch firsthand for exactly what you've been saying. Corey, let's get to the Wisconsin primary, winner take all. Right now, recent surveys show it a dead heat between Trump and Cruz. What do you think?
Here's what I think. I think, it's one of those states where it's a make or break for Ted Cruz. Look, his campaign is flailing. He needs to win more than 80% of the remaining delegates available in order to secure the nomination. It's almost mathematically impossible for him to do that. He is aware of that. It is time to unite behind the front runner, Donald Trump, and bring everybody together so that we can focus our attention on the presumptive Democrat nominee, which, a week ago was probably Hillary Clinton. Today is a toss-up after the weekend she had. And so, look, moving forward, I think Mr. Trump, if you look at the public polls, is going to do very, very well in the state of New York, his home state. The public polls have him up anywhere between 35 and 50% in the latest polling data. And I think what that indicates is that there is no clear path for Ted Cruz to be the nominee. And so, Wisconsin is a make-or-break state for Ted Cruz. If he doesn't win a week from today, he's mathematically eliminated from the race. And what he and John Kasich should do is immediately suspend their campaign, join the Trump campaign, endorse our campaign, and put our full efforts on defeating Hillary Clinton so that we do not have a third term of the Barack Obama administration.
So John is the governor of Ohio. John Kasich is already mathematically eliminated. His only way to get the nomination is to stop Trump short of the magic number of 1237 in Cleveland. Then somehow, some way, the delegates turn to him. And if Cruz gets beat in Wisconsin, he'll be mathematically eliminated, basically. And they ought to just get out with it, right?
Well, that's right. And I think what if you want to look back 4 years ago when Mitt Romney was the presumptive front runner, he didn't actually clinch the nomination, the number of delegates required, until the middle of May, or the end of May, actually. Right. And so, because he was running against Rick Santorum, who, by the way, won more states than Ted Cruz has won in this election so far. Rick Santorum carried 11 states, and Ted has won less than that. So, a lot of people tend to forget this, but Donald Trump is in a stronger position now than Mitt Romney was 4 years ago to clinch the nomination. Donald Trump is going to be the nominee. There's really no question about it. He's the only person who mathematically has the ability to go out and get the delegates necessary to win on the first ballot. And this notion of a contested convention sounds really good in theory to some people. But the bottom line is Donald Trump has received 2.5 million more votes than any other candidate in this race for president of the United States. And I hear the political pundits on, and what is amazing to me is they say that Donald Trump has only received 44% of the total votes cast in this election. Well, let's look at the converse of that. That means, number one, there were 17 people running. Number two, that means, the 60 or 56% of the remaining votes went to one of 16 or 17 other people. And so it goes to demonstrate that Donald Trump has received the vast majority when you're running in a field of 17 people. And if you want to look at it further down, that means Ted Cruz has only received like 22% of the total votes cast, as opposed to, the 44 or 46% that Donald Trump has received.
Incredible.
So, the opposite of that is 78% of the votes cast have been against Ted Cruz.
That's
and,
right.
No one wants to talk that way because they think all of a sudden, that's not the story that they want to permeate. And what you see is the professional pundit class scared to death of what goes on. And let me tell you, I had a conversation 2 days ago with someone in Washington, D.C., and here's what they said to me. They said, people are afraid in Washington, D.C. of Donald Trump because they don't know him. People are afraid of Ted Cruz in Washington, D.C. because they do know him. That's the fundamental difference.
Mm-hmm.
We can fix the problem of, Mr. Trump has run as the outsider and has not spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. because he's been out building a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Ted Cruz cannot fix the fact that the people in D.C. who know him best are not supporting his campaign. That will never change.
Let's get to the delegate selection. It's possible you get to Cleveland, Corey, just short of the 1,237 needed. I mean, I've got a calculation that shows you can get there. I've got one that shows you could be around 1,200. You could be 3 dozen short or so. You just got screwed in Louisiana. I know you're taking action on that, but I want you to reiterate to our listeners how critical it is to get Trump for president delegates elected in these various district conventions like we're having in Virginia, like we're having with mine in the 4th District on May 21 and others all over the state, to get Trump delegates to Cleveland in the event that he is denied a first ballot nomination.
Yeah, so John, it's a somewhat arcane process to actually become elected delegate depending on which state you're in. And some states have started the process over a year ago. That said, if first you'd have to show up at the state convention or a
Right.
county convention or a county meeting to then be eligible to have your name placed before the state convention, which would then go through another series. And so when you get to the point we are now, where Mr. Trump has won, almost 800 delegates of those available, what you have is that delegate selection process in some places is limited to specific individuals who have been longtime party activists or supporters, and they have been, running for a delegate in different capacities for the last year because they would have had to gone through a series of steps in order to get there. And those steps would include attending a local committee and then going to a state party convention last year and then being elected at that level to then be eligible to be a delegate. So right now, in those states, and some are different, some are just appointed and chosen by the campaign, but there is nothing more important to us than making sure that our people are placed in those delegate slots. And as an example, in the state of South Carolina, Mr. Trump won all 50 delegate slots available in the state of South Carolina due to his decisive victory. Mm-hmm. And what that means is we have to make sure that we have 50 or more, 100 eligible people who meet the state criteria for delegate selection. And that criteria is different in every single state, and sometimes it's done by congressional district, sometimes it's done by the discretion of the GOP chair, etc. Right. But what you have is you have a closed system in many places that really favors the GOP establishment. Those individuals who have been part of the process for a long time, those individuals, candidly, who have been a problem with the system because they like the status quo. Mm-hmm. And in order to be successful, to be a delegate in some places, is a very cumbersome process designed to reward those people who have been, involved for the last year. And what we have seen in this election cycle is that Mr. Trump is bringing new people into the election. He is bringing millions of people who've never voted before or have been so disenfranchised with the system, they're just fed up. And we see, former Democrats who have re-registered to be independents or Republicans to support Mr. Trump in the primary. Those are the people traditionally who are excluded from the delegate selection process because of the arcane rules of the states. So what we want to do is make sure that at these state conventions and state and places where delegates are being chosen, not only do we have the required number of delegates potentially available for us, but we have 2 or 3 times that many. So it's very important for us to make sure that if someone wants to be a delegate, they're contacting the campaign, and then working with our delegate selection team, which is headed up by Ed Brookover and Barry Bennett, two veteran operatives who have done this many, many times and have been to, I think, every convention since '76, to make sure that we have the right people in place so that when the convention happens in July, should there be any type of contention, which I don't think there will be, but should there be, we have the requisite number of delegates in place and in the right spot, and that's very, very important to us.
It's going to be absolutely critical. If you don't get the nomination on the first ballot, you might have to go to a second ballot. It's critical that we have Donald J. Trump for president supporters there who can stand up to the heat and stand up to the pressure to bear and do the right thing and vote for Trump in rules and also on second or down ballots. That's why it's so critical. You send our team there. Go to TrumpDelegatesVA.com. Help us out. Our convention, May 21st, and we have a lot of delegates in Virginia at stake. TrumpDelegatesVA.com. We'd appreciate the help, and we'll see you in Wakefield on May 21. For all our backers out there, we want to thank Corey Lewandowski for being with us. National Campaign Manager, Donald Trump for President Campaign. More information, DonaldJTrump.com. Hey, man, it's always great to have you on.